Hopefully nga,
Maganda yung pag-check niya.
hindi nuclear explosion, kundi love fest. There are many human rights violations taking place in our country today. But let me call your attention to 4 ongoing ones. First, just a few days ago, 6 indigenous activists from the Cordillera were unlawfully red tagged by the Anti-Terror Act Council. Second, several hundred members of the Manobo people are starving by the wayside in Quezon, Cotabato, unable to reclaim their ancestral lands from a corporation whose lease to their lands has expired. If you remember, during the election campaign last year, Kalyogi, narinig ba si Kalyogi? Accompanied the Manobos in a land occupation, and he and several others were nearly killed when the armed goons of the corporation, who's also the mayor of Quezon, Cotabato, fired at them. Third, Senator Laila de Lima remains in jail despite the fact that she has been acquitted in 2 of the narco-trafficking charges against her, and there is no evidence at all to support the third. The fourth human rights issue is the subject of my speech here tonight, the violation of our people's economic rights. Let me say that while I have been long active in the protection of the right to life, the right to be free from persecution, and the right to due process, I would like to believe the panel of judges for the Ignite Awards were also making a statement about my long-time engagement with economic rights. Most of my life's work has been devoted to intellectually and politically demolishing the ideology and policies of neoliberalism that have wreaked so much havoc among not only among our people, but in countries throughout the world. The destruction of our manufacturing and the devastation of our agriculture have led to so much poverty and inequality and sheer misery, leaving so many of our youth with no other choice but to abandon our ruined country. To borrow the distinction made by the philosopher Isaiah Berlin, there are negative rights, such as the right not to be tortured, and positive rights, or those that contribute to our full development as human beings. Human rights campaigns have traditionally focused on negative rights, that is, the protection of people from repression and persecution. I believe it is time we also campaign against individuals and institutions that violate the people's positive rights. Neoliberal policies such as those that have been imposed by the World Bank and International Monetary Fund, institutionalized in the Philippine economy, and rationalized by a succession of economic managers and economists, have created massive poverty and inequality that have prevented millions of our fellow Filipinos over the last 5 decades from their full development as human beings because they have destroyed, disarticulated, and disintegrated the country's base of physical survival, that is, the economy. That is a crime. Now, neoliberal policies are now discredited. The Washington Consensus is in a junk heap. No self-respecting economic manager in the world, except perhaps in the Philippines, any longer invokes the so-called quote-unquote magic of the market or the so-called benefits of trade. Yet in so many countries, and not just in the Philippines, neoliberal policies continue to be the default mode, like the proverbial dead hand of the engineer and the throttle of a speeding train. They continue to inflict severe damage on the life chances of billions of people because they have been institutionalized. Those who have been responsible for destroying economies cannot be allowed to just walk away from the wreckage, just as that monster, former President Rodrigo Duterte, cannot be allowed to just walk away with spilling the blood of 27,000 Filipinos. The bureaucrats and technocrats of the IMF and the World Bank, their local accomplices, particularly in the Department of Finance and the National Economic Development Authority, as well as the ideologues of neoliberalism that have spread the false gospel from their purchase in such institutions as the University of Chicago and the University of Philippines School of Economics, that was abolished, must also be brought before the International Criminal Court. Now, Duterte's hands are bloody, but so are the hands of these white-collar criminals. Very dirty. Like those bombing crews that drop their lethal payloads from 27,000 feet, or the remote controller that directs a drone to destroy a wedding party in Pakistan from thousands of miles away in Nevada, USA. These people are not exempted from guilt owing to their distance from the sites of death, destruction, harrowing poverty, and misery. It is high time we seek justice for economic crimes. It is high time we cease honoring such criminals with Nobel Prizes in economics, but bring them instead to the International Criminal Court. If the arraignment of such economic criminals cannot be immediately done, owing to the need to amend the Rome Statute that established the ICC, then at least let us establish a hall of infamy where we can enshrine such dead and living stars of neoliberalism as the Nobel Prize laureate Milton Friedman, the ideological soulmate of the General Augusto Pinochet, Michel Camdessus and Christine Lagarde, the best-known faces of the IMF-imposed austerity, Larry Summers, former chief economist of the World Bank and advocate of dumping waste from the rich countries on the poor, former World Bank President Robert McNamara, patay na, who conspired with dictator Marcos to make the Philippines one of the guinea pigs of structural adjustment, John Williamson, the author of the Washington Consensus, and Pascal Lamy and Mike Moore, who spearheaded the drive to imprison the Global South in the iron cage of free trade, the World Trade Organization. I would also like to push for inclusion in such a hall of infamy Filipino luminaries of technocratic neoliberalism, the people who work with international technocrats to condemn us to permanent debt slavery, destroy our manufacturing, and bring our agriculture to a terminal state. Here, I would include the economic managers and economists Jesus Estanislao, Jerry Sica, Cesar Virata, Bernie Villegas, and Carlos Dominguez III. Dapat ko nasa hall of infamy yan. Kasi hindi pa na-amend yung ICC Rome Statute. And of course, one must not forget the fellow columnist of Richard Hidarian in the Inquirer, Shelito Habito, who as National Economic Development Authority chief almost single-handedly wiped out Philippine manufacturing with his push to bring down average tariffs to 4 to 6%, simply to prove that Filipinos could take economic pain better than Chileans. Because, sabi ng mga Chicago boys ni Pinochet, they could not allow tariffs to go below 11% of the value of the goods. Sabi ni Habito, kaya namin yan kasi Pinoy kami. So, derive na nangyari. This is really good. You can look at the history of Philippine manufacturing since the Ramos administration, and it's been totally fucking wiped out. Nor must be overlooked the WTO USA mercenary Ramon Clarete, who famously sought to sugarcoat the impending murder of our agricultural sector by claiming that the Philippines joining the WTO's agreement on agriculture would result in 500,000 new jobs every year in the countryside. Sinabi ko niyan nung debate namin over whether the Philippines should join the WTO. Okay? Instead, what we've had is the virtual wiping out of our agriculture na naghihingalo na talaga ngayon. Okay? Alam na mga magsasaka natin na naririto ngayon kung paano nawasak ng WTO ni Clarete ang kabuhayan natin. Hindi ho ba? But some people might object, Habito and Clarete are such mild-mannered individuals to be deserved being tagged as economic criminals. So was the Nazi Adolf Eichmann, whom Anna Arendt famously described as representing, and I quote, the banality of evil, unquote. Now others might say, well, they were wrong, but were they not well-intentioned, all of these economists? This excuse does not even deserve an answer, since the dictator Ferdinand Marcos Sr. and Duterte also saw themselves as well-intentioned as they went about their grisly business. The road to hell, one must repeat again and again, is paved with good intentions. Let me say here that while we are right to be concerned at the opportunities for corruption afforded by the Maharlika Fund, which even the UK economists are concerned with. The truth is, the resources that the Maharlika Fund will siphon off to the pockets of politicians are peanuts compared to the catastrophic costs that have been visited on our people by the wiping out of whole sectors of our economy. In fact, the only living, vibrant sector of our economy is labor export. Okay? And I know this because I was the chair of the
Overseas
Committee
Workers
on Overseas Workers Affairs. They could not wait to leave the Philippines because there were no jobs available here, because manufacturing and agriculture and services had been ruined. So this is really the crime of this century. How right Michel Foucault was to point out in his book Discipline and Punish that outright cruelty is in fact much less cruel than the so-called reforms in the system of punishment like structural adjustment that have the stamp of pseudo-science. Kaya mahalaga ko talaga that we must really start demystifying current economics. Kasi pseudo-science po yan. It is mainly meant to serve the powerful, and it destroys the living of billions of people. Ngayon, actually, nobody believes in neoliberalism at this point. Read the New York Times, read anything coming out of the Western media, and they all admit neoliberalism has failed. Ang problema na institutionalized na yan. And it is followed almost automatically by technocrats, such as people like Jokno and others, na basically, they think that they're basically doing good, that it's science, but actually, this has been the terrible tragedy of the Global South, that we've had all these pseudo-scientific principles institutionalized, so that now they have a life of its own, and they continue to reproduce inequality and poverty on a global scale. So, being tried at the ICC or honored with membership at the Hall of Infamy would be a lesson to all that bad ideas and bad policies have consequences, often devastating ones, that you cannot play academic and policy games with the lives of billions of people. So let me end by demanding the release of my fellow Ignite awardee, Senator Laila de Lima, backing off the monster Duterte to the ICC jail in The Hague. Pagdala na si Duterte sa The Hague. Hinihintay na siya ang cell niya roon.
With Putin.
an end to impunity, and the dismantling of those neoliberal policies that have destroyed our economy and have brought so much misery to our people. Again, thank you, Amnesty, and thank you to all of you for being here tonight. This is not really, yes, it's a celebration of this award, but it is also, a call to destroy neoliberal policies. And those individuals who have imposed those policies and condemned our people to tremendous poverty and inequality. Thank you very much.